I see we have someone here, so I will be courteous and say hello and welcome. My name's Peter Lemieux. I'm going to be talking about disability income in a few minutes and try to point out to you some definite areas where you'll see questions on the test that you need to get on top of and make sure you've got them nailed down. Uh, so I'll be going through the highlights of disability income. I'm not going to drill down too deep, but I am going to cover what I believe are all the questions that you can get on disability income. I will be mentioning and trying to explain to you today in the time we have together. If you plan on sticking around, it would probably benefit you most to take some notes so that you don't have to remember everything you just heard on the internet, but you can look over your notes. I'm assuming everybody here is studying for health exam, which is where we're going to find disability income. It won't be on the life exam. It won't be on the P&C exam. So just so you know what's going on. You can't talk to me, unfortunately, in these live classes, but you can go on the chat. So hi, Pam. Thanks for the hello. So not being able to see you, hear you, or know what's going on, little comments like Pam just gave me are very, very much appreciated. Otherwise, I'm just speaking into my computer in a room like I've lost my mind um, about stuff that most people in the world could care less about. So let's try to keep me sane if you can by mentioning from time to time that you understand what's going on. You know, the only benefit of doing these talks actually is if it forwards you, gets you in a better position to pass the test, right? So I'm trying to try to speak at that level. I don't know where you guys are at. In any typical live class, people wander in and out, curious, whatever reasons they come. Um, some people come in pretty well prepared for the exam, and sometimes they'll find my comments stuff they already know, and I understand that. You know, I have to speak kind of to the middle crowd. Other people come in absolutely brand new. They haven't even read anything about the material. And for those people, they may want me to slow down and say, whoa, 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 I don't even know what you're talking about. But again, I'm going to talk to the middle of the class and just get the most out of it that you can. I don't object to you commenting on the chat box so that I can help you better. Okay. My name's Peter Lemieux. This is the insurance exam queen, Melissa Dillon. I am not the insurance exam queen. I'm a jester in her court. I've known Melissa for many, many years. I've really admired her enthusiasm, her wonderful teaching ability, her creativity. And I asked her when she started her business how I can help her. I have been in the insurance business for 52 years. The last 15, I've spent a lot of time doing what Melissa does, and that's helping people pass state exams. I've taught in many different states, um, and so I help her where she asked me to help her. Today, we're going to talk about disability income, and hopefully, this will move ahead and help you guys out. So, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use some slides to keep me going in the right direction and not wander off and just tell war stories and times the past or anything like that. So that's my first slide, disability income policies, which means I'm going to get started. Calm down, folks. I know you are standing and cheering and just going crazy about this, but just take it easy. It's Monday morning. Calm down. Let's get started with a commercial. This is me. Go to YouTube, Insurance Exam Queen, and click on Join. I have taught all 16 chapters of Life and Health in depth. Not like today where I'll kind of go quickly, but in depth. And they are on a recording, and you can have all 16 of them for like $25 or $26. Okay. How you do that is you go to YouTube, Insurance Exam Clean, click on join. It's a subscription. So if you have them for a month and you want to keep studying them, you can renew it or just cancel it, whatever. But what it'll do is it'll allow you to access any chapter you want in detail taught by me. Okay. If you enjoy my teaching and something like that, this is something to look into. It's certainly financial bargain for you to have access to all these courses for such a low price. That's my commercial. I will now get to um, the first slide. Ooh, ooh, lots of writing on this slide. The first thing they teach you in making slides is don't put a lot of writing. In reviewing this, I did some of these slides. The staff at Insurance Exam Queen did several of them. This is one that has probably too much writing, but it's good points. You see, there's two things, folks, you got to be sure of with disability income. One is that you understand the terminology. That's probably the major part of it. Understand how the policy works. And then finally, at the end, I'll cover the taxes, which represent maybe 2 or 3 questions on your test, but it's the part that drives people nuts. Okay. So that's what I have planned. Usually it takes me an hour or a little over an hour to cover all this. We'll just see how gabby and uh, talkative I am. We got to talk about the purpose of disability income, group disability, individual disability, the difference between own occupation and any occupation. These are words you've got to know for the test. What's presumptive disability, partial disability, residual disability? What is waiver of premium? What's an elimination period and a benefit period? There are 3 business disability policies: key person, buy, sell, and business overhead. A few words about Social Security disability credits and waiting period of Social Security disability. Breath, Peter. We'll do it. We'll get this done. We'll go in order and hopefully it'll all make a lot of sense to you. Okay. What is disability income and how much can I get or buy? So here we go. You're working for an income. That's what most people work, right? But you suffer a disabling injury or sickness that prevents you from receiving an income. You can't go to work because you're sick or injured. If that happens, your disability income policy will pay you your missed income. So one has to ask, if you don't own disability income and you couldn't go to work because of a sickness or injury, how long can you live without that income before you get in real financial trouble, missing car payments, rent, or mortgage payments, or whatever, just eating? If you don't have any other resources of income, disability income is a product you ought to consider. Okay. Social Security disability income, which I'm going to cover a little later, but I want to give you a big picture. Social Security disability income is insured through the government. It's very difficult to qualify for it because it has strict definition of what a disability is. It has long waiting periods and it's only for long-term disabilities, not short-term. That is why people don't rely on it. They go and get their own disability income. You can buy it privately through a private insurer. It is easier to qualify to get the check than Social Security. The definition of disability is not as strict, and you pick the waiting period. And so that way you can get a short-term disability income policy, which is not available from Social Security. You will need to know about both of these disability income policies on the test. Okay. Here's a practice question. What's the purpose of a disability income policy? A, replace income when you can no longer work for any reason. Replace income when you can no longer work due to a disabling sickness or injury. Pay for medical bills after a work injury. Replace workers' comp. What I want you to do is put A, B, C, or D in the chat box just to let me know that you're here. and you're going to try at this. I have never removed someone for class for missing a question. Just what makes sense to you, and then we'll talk about it. Thank you, Nikki. Anybody else want to try? Pam is in. I got a B, I got a C. This is like an auction. I got a B, I got a C. Anybody want to break the tie or perhaps put another answer down? We got to get some kind of consensus. There's 10 of you, only 2 brave souls. You know what they say, if you don't vote, you have to live with the consequences of the election. All right, I'm not going to wait any longer. Let us take a look. Okay, I got an A, a B, and a B. So B won the vote. And the answer is B. What is the difference between B and A? B says you can no longer work because of a disabling sickness or injury. But A says you can no longer work for any reason. If you lose your job, get fired, or just quit, that's not a disability. So it won't replace your income when you no longer can work for any reason. You have to be out due to a sickness or injury. This is a good question because it points out to us the importance of reading the whole answer before you make your decision. How much disability can you get? Excuse me, but I don't like reading slides to people. So I'm going to kind of briefly tell you what this says. If you want to know exactly what it says, screenshot it or get a video that you can freeze or whatever. We're talking here about the word indemnity. Indemnity says we restore you, but you don't make a profit. Therefore, you cannot buy your whole income. If you make $5,000 a month, you cannot buy $5,000 of disability income. Why? You don't take home $5,000 a month. Okay. The most insurance companies will only allow you to take a percentage. The most common is 2/3. And some companies are a little more liberal, but they will never allow you to buy what you make. It'll always be less so you can pay your bills, build in a little bit of an incentive to go back to work so that you just don't sit around. I mean, it's easier not to work. You don't have to listen to the boss and do stuff you don't want to do. And then no insurance company wants to just send checks to people who are pretending to be disabled, right? So you can only buy a percentage, usually 2/3 of the gross income that you make. So here's, oops, it looks to me like I went backwards. How can, oh, that's the same question. How can we purchase disability income insurance? Well, this is where you can buy an individual policy, or you can go and wouldn't get it, but you would work for an employer who provided it for you. So let me just pick on someone in a class that was in the chat box. We'll go with the person named Quiet. Quiet doesn't have disability income at work. So Quiet decides to buy an individual policy. That's going to be more expensive than if your employer buys it for you. Okay. It requires intense underwriting. What I mean by that, you're going to have to prove you're healthy. But more than that, you're going to have to prove that your job is safe enough that we'll insure you. If you have a job that a lot of people get disabled on, you may not qualify. Finally, you have to prove your income so that you can buy a percentage of it. So people who are self-employed may not report a high income. You can only claim the income you report to the government and buy a percentage of that, not on the test. I'm just telling you, it's more expensive. You're going to have to qualify. It's more difficult to qualify, but you can keep that policy as long as you want, depending on whether it's renewable or not. If you go to work, it's less expensive. First, group is always less expensive than individual, and the employer usually pays a major share of it. You're automatically eligible just by the fact that you're working there. You don't have to answer any health questions. It's available to eligible employees, which usually excludes part timers and seasonal people. But if you qualify as a full time employee and it's a group policy, you're just going to get it. However, that policy is owned by the owner of the company. You can stay on it as long as you work for that company. Should you leave the company or should the employer cancel the insurance, you can't, it's you can keep individual, no guarantee that you can keep. That's a good overview. When you buy an individual policy like Quiet did, you're going to buy it by an amount of money. Quiet would have to say, I want to buy, for example, here, I make $1,000 a month, and that means that Quiet can buy 660. It's always listed as a dollar amount. Okay. But in group insurance, you won't see a dollar amount. When you go to work, they'll give you a percentage. For example, in the group that I put up here, they will insure you for 66% of your income. Groups have to do that. You guys know this because everybody working there makes a different amount of money. It would make no sense to say $660 because some people may make a lot more than $1,000, right? So they just put the percentage in. Individual, you list it by a dollar amount. Group, you're going to list it by a percentage. Now, individual versus group short term. Individual policy short term is 6 months to 2 years, but group, for some reason unexplainable, considers short term insurance 13 to 26 weeks. Who cares? There is a test question, and what Melissa has pointed out, short term insurance, whether individual or group, will never be longer than 2 years. With group, it's going to be 26 weeks or less, individual, 2 years or less, but never longer than 2 years. If it goes over 2 years, you have long term disability. Let me go back. I just want to make sure if you have questions that I'm noting them and answering you. Practiced. Okay, let's do a little quiz question. Group disability income benefits are usually based on a percentage of the employee's gross, free from income tax, a flat amount, not tax deducted. Hit the chat box. Tell me what the right answer is. Big hint. I told you the answer in my slides. With that huge hint, everybody focuses in, everybody, 2 out of 11 people focused in on letter A, which is based on a percentage. Group is percentage and individual is a flat amount. I don't know why I keep going backwards. Now we want to go into taxes. This is the one that gives people Excedrin headaches, okay? Group insurance and individual insurance will be taxed differently. Now, before you get this, here's the principle on taxes. If you learn the principle, you actually can figure the tax questions out. The principle is this: the IRS is going to get their taxes either in the premium you pay or the benefit when you're disabled. Not both, not neither. They're going to get taxes on one side or another. So, in principle, if I pay taxes on my premium, my benefit will come tax free. However, if I don't pay taxes on the premium, then when I'm disabled, the benefit is taxed. One side or the other, not both. Now, it's not your choice. You just have to learn this. When Quiet buys the disability income individually, Quiet buys that with money that has already had taxes come out from their take home pay. Taxes were deducted first. So you pay taxes on your premium. What does that mean? When quiet gets disabled, the check is fully tax free because quiet paid taxes on the premium. But when you go to work and the employer pays the premium, the employer does not pay taxes. They are going to deduct it as an employee benefit. So that money was never taxed. Meaning if Pam got her disability income at work and she gets disabled, her check is going to be taxed. Tax will come out of her check. So one side or the other. The employer pays it, then you're going to pay tax on your check. You pay it, your check is tax free. So just get that principle down. Start. I got more to explain a little later, but now we're going to complicate it. Not really. Looks complicated, it isn't. We use small numbers so the math works, okay? Disability income policy is $100, but it's group and your employer decides to pay 80% of it. So they are going to pay 80 bucks and they don't pay taxes on it. But for you to get the policy, you have to pay 20 bucks. That's a pretty good deal. So you buy it with money that you already paid taxes on. You see, you paid taxes, the employer didn't. Now you get disabled. You must pay income tax on $8,000 benefit. 80% of that is taxed because 80% of the premium, the tax wasn't paid. But 20% you're going to get tax free because that's the percentage you bought. Looks and sounds complicated, but if you simply understand the principle, if I pay taxes on my premium, that part of the check is tax free. $20 was 20%. 20% of my check is tax free. But my employer didn't pay taxes, so 80% will be taxed. Hopefully, that is something that you can use and go on. I wonder if I went backwards. I did. Okay, let's go back. I don't know why it keeps going backwards. Anyway, any employer paid the entire premium for a group disability income with $1,000 monthly benefit amount. How much of the $1,000 will be taxed? 0, 100%, 80%, none of the above. Okay, tax wizards, what do you think? You got the employer paying the entire premium and the benefit's $1,000 a month. The employee gets disabled. How much tax is coming out of the check? A, B, C, or D? Now, the computer tells me you're here. I can't see you, but let me know what you think. Come on, it's just a game. Okay, if you get it right, I'll send you a box of roses. I lie all the time. What do you think? Okay, Pam's paying, you're not going to pay any tax at all. Okay? Any other voices in the crowd? Nikki says, no, you're going to pay 100%. And Pam comes in with 80%. Stephen comes in with 100%, breaking the tie. Another got another 0. Let's take a look at this and see if we can have it. 100%. Why? I mean, because some of you got it right, some of you didn't. The employer pays the premium, all the premium. Does the employer pay tax on a premium? Never. Meaning the whole check when you receive the benefit is taxable. It's 100%. Okay, now I understand the temptation of 80% because I just gave you an example of 80%, but that's not what the question said. The question said the employer paid the entire premium, which means no taxes have been paid. So when our employee gets disabled, the whole check is taxable. So I just want to make sure, can you guys give me a thumbs up that that explanation made sense to you? Because if it didn't, I'm going to start the whole talk over again. The IRS is going to get one side or the other, right? So they didn't get any of that premium taxed because the employer paid it. Employer contributions are not taxable, meaning the check will be. Okay, Pam, you and I are getting just fine. What triggers the policy to pay out a disability check? Well, it really depends on what the insurance company defines as a disability. For your test, you've got to learn two definitions: own occupation and any occupation. And it is exactly what it says it is. Own occupation means I can no longer go back to the exact job I had before I was disabled. Any occupation says I can no longer work at any job. Okay, let's look at some examples of this to make sure we got it. Um, Gosh, I keep going backwards. So, own occupation says this: I cannot work at my own job, but I could possibly work at another one. You're disabled because it only says, can you go back to your job? However, any occupation, you say, I cannot work at any job at all. So, if you think about that, it's harder to get a job, get a disability check with any occupation. Own occupation, can you do your job? No, the job that I'm doing right now, construction or something like that, I can't do because of my back. Own occupation, you're going to get disabled. Any occupation, you may not, because you may be able to do a less strenuous job. Okay. So on own occupation, all I prove is that I cannot work at my own one single job that I have a right now, and then that the job I have right now, and then they're going to send me my disability check. With any occupation, it's more restricted because you got to prove you can't work anywhere at any kind of job. Because if you can, they're not going to consider you disabled. So here's some examples to beat this over your head so you get it. Own occupation. Imagine this: you get hurt and you're disabled, you call the insurance company. The insurer asks you, does this injury prevent you from working at your current job? Yes, I can no longer work at my job due to this injury. You are disabled and you get a check. Okay? Now, with any occupation, you call up and you say, they say to you, does this injury prevent you from working any possible job? Well, not really. I quit my labor heavy job, but I could go and answer phones and schedule appointments. You're not disabled. Same guy, same injury. If they have own occupation, they're disabled. If they have any occupation, they are not. So who buys own occupation? The better policy. You usually highly paid, highly skilled people will get own occupation. For example, if you're a skilled surgeon, you injure your hands, you can't do surgery. Do you think they want to go and get a lower paying job? No, they can't be a surgeon anymore. They want to get paid. So, highly paid, highly skilled people. Any occupation is good for your average worker who doesn't have high level qualifications, could just as easily get a similar paying job elsewhere. Okay, you're a retail worker and you got hurt, you can't lift boxes. Well, then go work at customer service, call center, or maybe you can work at the checkout instead of having to lift boxes. So you can do other kinds of work. So that's the people who buy any occupation versus own occupation. How do you know which one to choose when you're buying a policy? Okay. And Melissa made this slide and she made some excellent points in here. Um, you must remember that the statement suited by reason of education, training, or experience, that is talking about any occupation. Okay. They don't care about what you want to do. If you can do something based on your education, training, and experience. So, example, our construction worker, obviously that person can't become a trial attorney. Okay, so they're not going to be expected to be. based on their education, training, or experience, can they do something else? So it's any occupation, just as long as you can work somewhere. So when you see that in a question, education, training, or experience, please connect that to any occupation. Why don't we see that in own occupation? Because all we care about is, can you go back to the job you have right now? That's the only question that we're concerned about. So, how to know whether to choose own occupation on the exam. This good slide. If you can take a picture of it or screenshot it, might not be a bad idea. Since own occupation pays out as soon as you cannot do your own job, it doesn't matter if you can or do work anywhere else. Imagine a surgeon who injures his hands and he's collecting own occupation checks since he cannot do surgeries. If the exam question says they are collecting a check and working a job, they must have own occupation because he's not working as a surgeon. Okay. So I personally have never seen a question like this. Melissa has looked at a lot more tests than I have. So I just am going to mention it to you. If you just think about it, someone is collecting a check and they're working a job. How is that possible? It's not possible if they have any occupation, but it could be possible with own occupation. Hopefully that some sense. Whew, Peter's talking a lot today. Let's take a break for a commercial. Remember, if you go to YouTube, Insurance Exam Clean, click on join. I teach every chapter of life and health, and you can subscribe to it for $25 and change. I, as part of this ad, tell everyone that's the best deal since somebody invented cotton candy. Okay, that's the end of the commercial. Other ways to trigger policy coverage. Now, what we're going to do right now is go through a series of phrases or words that you have to know. If you know it, fine. If you don't know it, please write it down and make a flashcard. You're going to get asked about presumptive disability. Presumptive disability doesn't care about any occupation or own occupation. You can collect a check if you are permanently, in other words, you can't get it back. If you lose 2 limbs, they're not going to grow back. You're deaf, 2 ears, or you can't speak 2 lips. Permanently, you're not going to get recovering from them. We're going to presume you're disabled and you will get benefits on presumptive disability. I think the key thing about disability is please remember 2. You must permanently lose 2. So here's some tricky questions they can throw at you. A person lost eyesight in 2 eyes, and in 3 months the sight came back. What presumptive benefits will they receive? The answer, oh, who spelled receive? Let's blame that on Melissa, on the staff. Not me, I didn't do that. Okay, none. You're not going to get it for 3 months and then take it away. It has to be permanent. So, when you get injured, the doctors will say it's coming back or not. If it's expected to come back, you get nothing. A person permanently loses eyesight in 1 eye. What presumptive benefits will they receive? None. 2. Okay. So this is a good little slide to remind you of what presumptive disability is about. How long does a presumptive disability last? Easy to remember. It's 2. 2, 2, 2 on presumptive disability. Okay. It lasts for 2 years. After that, they will see if you can still work. Think of it like you lose 2 limbs, 2 eyes, or 2 ears. By using presumptive definition instead of cannot work, it gives the insured time to adjust. So I know a guy who had a stroke and could not use his legs. Okay. Let's imagine, I don't know what this guy had for insurance. Imagine he had presumptive disability. He would get a check for 2 years. allowing him to do vocational training. He was a mailman. He ended up becoming an accountant. This would have given him money for 2 years to do that. That's kind of a good picture of presumptive disability. So, memory trick, presumptive and permanent, 2 words for 2 years. Now, we're going to talk about two return to work benefits, okay? Um, so, you're out on disability and you're now going back to work. But the physician, your doctor says he only wants you going to work part time. I guess that's on my next slide. We have to talk about residual and partial disability. As the slides are going to teach us, residual focuses on earnings, partial on time, but I'm going to explain that better. Partial disability, the doctor says, and on your test, it's always the same number. You can go to work 20 hours a week, half time. They never play with math with you, okay? Partial disability, it focuses on your hours. So this person is returning to work half time. If you have partial disability, the disability check will be cut in half. So you're getting half from disability and half from working, okay? Now, what's the big deal on this? If for some reason you did not have partial disability on your policy, returning to work in any way, your disability check disappears and you would actually get a cut in pay by going back to work. So we want to put partial disability on every policy. So if they go to back to work part-time, the combination of the two will keep them able to pay their bills. The focus, I'm going to go back on partial, is hours worked. Okay. Residual disability is for a different kind of person. Partial works great if you're on salary, right? Or if you're hourly, it works perfect. But what about someone on commissions? Okay, say you're selling real estate and you're out for 5 months. You haven't got any listings, you got no commissions coming in. You can go back to work full time, but you don't have any money. So what you need is, if you had partial, just going back to work, they'd cut your check. If the doctor says you can go back to work full time, your check disappears. So for that person on commissions, they need the residual disability. Tim returns to work on his commission job. His commissions are 40% of his pre-disability income. If he had residual disability, the insurance company would cut his disability check by 40%, meaning they'll still pay him 60, knowing he'll get 40 from work. What's the focus on residual disability? It's on his earnings, not on the time put in. Now, they're not going to do that forever. It's not a benefit that allow you to just be lazy, okay? But that's the way it's calculated. Residual disability focuses on the income you're making. Partial disability focuses on how many hours you're able to work. Another good slide to take a picture of, because you got to know presumptive disability, partial disability, residual disability. These are the words I told you in the beginning we're going to have to learn. Now we have one called recurrent disability. Okay, let's see. I got a whole bunch of stuff I didn't see. I'm breaking up. It's okay now. I'm having trouble hearing you. Thank you. Oh, you broke up with me. Okay. Log out, come back in. That's what I had to do. I hope it works. I'm sorry about that. Um, the wonders of technology. Okay. So a recurrent disability, the way I teach this is it's a reoccurring disability. After returning to work from a disability, the employee has to go out again for the same medical reason. You're disabled for the same reason. You'll go out within the approved time, which is usually 3 to 6 months, but you're going out for the same reason. The insurance company looks at that as a continuation of your original disability. They don't look at it as a new one. It's called recurrent. Now, what that means is, and I haven't talked to you about this, is you don't have a new elimination period to satisfy. Okay, that's basically what it. Recurrent is reoccurring disability. Key terms to know and understand. Folks, to understand disability income policy, it's really important to know what an elimination period is. Sometimes the elimination period can be called a waiting period. Just between you and me, it is not, get me, not a probationary period. That's totally different. One's a horse and one's a pig. They are not the same. Okay. An elimination period is an amount of time selected by your employer, if it's group, or you on individual, where you tell the insurance company you don't need to pay me for the first blank days. I'll take care of myself. So if you tell them, I don't need any payments in the first 30 days, and you're out for 2 weeks, you won't get any payments. And if you then decide that you have enough money in savings and PTO that you can take 60-day elimination period, that's going to lower your price because the likelihood of the insurance company paying you just got smaller. When you take the risk and lessen it on the insurance company, they lower your rate. This is really a deductible. We call it a time deductible. The bigger or longer the deductible, the less you will pay. Okay. Now there's benefit period. What a benefit period says is once you start getting money from the insurance company, how long do you want the checks to go? It says here you choose between 2 years and age 65. You actually can choose less than 2 years on a short term disability. You could choose 1 year. But what it means is after you've been getting checks for that period of time, your insurance is used up for that claim. Okay. The length of the benefit period also affects your price. If I go from 2 years of benefits to 5 years of benefits, I'm actually buying more insurance, right? That will always raise my price. Okay, let me see. HT, can you go back and redo the slides you were breaking up in? It started in presumptive disability. I will happily do that because I am really concerned that you people get what I was saying. Wow, that was a long time ago. Okay, here we go. Presumptive disability. 2, permanent loss of limbs, eyes, ears, or lips, loss of sight, hearing, speech, okay? But it has to be permanent. So we got some questions in here. So you lose sight for 3 months, you get nothing, okay? It has to be permanent. You lose sight in one eye, you get nothing. It has to be 2. Now, it lasts, interestingly enough, for 2 years, giving you time to adjust and get vocational training. So if you're going to be permanently blind, you're going to qualify presumptive disability, and that check will go for 2 years and 2 years only, giving you a chance to do vocational training to perhaps see if there's something else you can do. The key with presumptive disability is we presume you're not going to get better. Limbs don't grow back, and we've been told the loss of sight is permanent. You must lose 2, and you get covered for 2 years. Key, it's presumptive and permanent. 2 words, and it's good for 2 years. Now I'm going to talk about 2 return to work benefits, and those people who were with me for this, I'll go a little bit quickly, but I want to include the poor people who couldn't hear me. Residual and partial disability. Residual focuses on earnings, partial on time, and the slides will explain this. Partial disability, please think of part-time, partial part. The doctor says you can return to work, but only part-time. Every question on partial disability will assume you're going back to work for 20 hours, which is half of a week. They're going to focus on the fact that you're going to get paid for a half a week. The insurance company will then cut your disability income check in half. What decides how much you get is how many hours you can actually work. Has nothing to do with the money, how many hours. So this benefit works great if you're paid hourly or on salary. However, residual is built for people on commissions who could go back to work full time, but they're not making as much money as they were before. In our example, Tim goes back to work, but his commissions are now 40%. On residual disability, the insurance company will continue 60% of his disability check. So between the 60 and a 40, he's kind of back to where he was. They won't do it forever. It's not a ticket for laziness. But what you want to remember is that residual focuses on how much money you're making when you go back to work, and partial focuses how many hours you're able to work. The difference between residual and disability. A recurrent disability is a reoccurring disability. Somebody goes to work, is working, goes out on disability. Later, the doctor says you can go back to work, but the doctor made a mistake. You go back, and after a few weeks, the back is still killing you. If you're going out for the same condition within the approved time, some states are 3 and some are 6 months, it's going to be called a recurrent, or I put it this way, a reoccurring disability, which means the insurance company looks at it as the same disability, not a brand new one. That means you don't have to satisfy an elimination period. If you're not sure about what an elimination period is, I'm getting to it. Okay? Here it is. Elimination period is known as a time deductible. It also can be called a waiting period. It is not, capital letters, not a probationary period. That's something totally different. Okay? That is a different family of words. Elimination and waiting period are the same. The insured picks how long the elimination period is. If you're buying individual policy, you'll pick your own. If you're covered in group, the employer picks it. The longer the waiting period is to get a check, the lower the premium. And as I said before, if you have a elimination period of 30 days, you pay a certain price. But you find out with all your savings and PTO, you actually can wait 60 days. And you change it, your price comes down, because what you're doing is you're lessening the risk of the insurance company. They're less likely to ever have to pay you a claim with a long elimination period, so your price comes down. The longer the deductible, the lower the premium. Different than a benefit period. A benefit period is how long you're going to get the checks once you're on disability. That can be between 2 years and age 65. The longer you want a benefit period, the more you have to pay because you're buying more insurance. So if I have a benefit period of 2 years and I'm thinking about that and say, holy cow, if I get hurt badly, am I out of work for more than 2 years? I haven't got enough. I kick it up to 5 years. What did I do? I raised my price because I bought more insurance. Okay. I got a chart coming up that'll clear this up. This is going to set up the chart. And this is actually an excellent chart. I want to encourage you guys to pay attention to this. It'll explain how the disability policy works. Jim is age 20. He buys a policy in 2000. That's good until he's 65 years old. He chooses an elimination period of 30 days and a benefit period of 2 years. In 2010, 10 years later, he suffers a disabling injury and it prevents him from working for 3 years. Let's take a look at a timeline. Now, this looks confusing. It actually turns all the lights on in the room if you just follow me. Start on the left. Start date of the policy is 2000. 2010, Jim gets disabled. So he starts to receive his disability, but not in the first 30 days. He had a 30-day elimination period. After that, okay, January 31st, the end of the elimination period, he starts getting checks. He bought a 2-year benefit period, and so he gets a check every month for 2 years. On January 31st, 2012, his insurance has run out. He's still disabled. Remember, got disabled for 3 years. So for the next 11 months, till January 1st of 2013, when he goes back to work, there was no check for him. His benefit period had run out. Then he goes back to work and it starts over again. If he gets disabled after January 1st, 2013, the process starts all over. He has to satisfy his elimination, and then he's got 2 years of benefits. That explains how an elimination period and a benefit period work. Now, let me go back here, see your comments. How are we doing? Did I catch you up? And does this slide help you to understand a disability and policy and how it works? Are we connecting at any level? Or have we got more disconnects because of technology? Well, Nikki and I are getting along just fine. Okay, we're going to move on. This is a really important slide. My friends, I can't send you our slideshow. However, if you're going to understand some key questions in disability income, this is the slide to learn. Take a picture of it, screenshot it, but capture it. If you have a long elimination period, it lowers the premium. You're lengthening your deductible. If Jim goes from 30 days to 60 days, he pays less money. A short elimination period raises the price. Only makes sense. Now, in benefit periods, the long benefit period costs you more because you're buying more insurance. Okay. If Jim went from a 2-year benefit to 5-year benefit, it would cost him more money because he's buying more insurance. But if he lowers it, it makes the price go down. And here is the test question at the bottom. The cheapest, we're not supposed to say cheap, the least expensive premium is a long elimination period and a short benefit period. The most expensive is short elimination and long benefit. You are going to get at least 1 or 2 questions wanting to know if you change elimination period or benefit period, how does it affect your price? So get on top of this. Here's my advice to you. Number 1, learn the words recurrent, partial, residual, presumptive, and learn these benefits, how the elimination period and the benefit period affect the price. Very common questions they ask. Okay. Now we've got to talk about 3 business disability policies. I find that if taken life courses, this is a little easier to understand because these mirror a life insurance policy, but they're not life insurance. These are payout if you can't go to work. Okay, that's a disability policy. A key person policy is purchased by the employer, owned by the employer, paid for by the employer, and when the employee gets disabled, the check goes to the employer, not the disabled person. Key person disability, employer to employee for the benefit of the business, not the employee. For the benefit of the business. That's why the business pays for it, owns it, and gets the check. That's what key person is. Now we're going to go to the next one, which is taxes. Don't let this one too much. I got a slide at the end that'll clarify this. Business is not allowed to tax deduct the premium. What I'm saying here is they must pay taxes on that premium. However, if that key employee gets disabled, the check going to the business is totally tax-free. Now, you don't have to remember this yet. I got a cheat sheet coming up to help you out, okay? Let's talk about buy sell. Buy sell is when owners insure each other so that if you can't come to work for your disabled for a long period of time, the employer that's doing the work buys you out, takes money from the policy and buys your shares out. You get cash and they get ownership of the business because you're not working there anymore. So a buy sell disability policy does not pay monthly income. It pays one lump sum, kind of like the life insurance, enough money to buy this person out. That's what a disability buy sell does. Um, it's also known as business continuation. It is best that they have a buy sell agreement written up by a lawyer. So when the disability occurs, there's no arguing about how this worked. They've a signed agreement. Okay. But on the test, we want to talk about the policy. So get me on this one. Key person, the business insures an employee. Buy sell, owners insure each other. So remember that one, okay? Now, what about the taxes on buy sell? It's identical to the key person. The business must pay taxes on the premium. The good news is when they get this large lump sum because one of the business owners isn't working anymore, that comes in tax free to buy the business owner out. So both of them, they pay tax on the premium for the benefit to be tax free. The third one is studied life insurance is not a life insurance product. It's disability income, but it's called a business overhead policy. In this, the owner covers the expenses at work, not their income. So let's think about it this way. You're a dentist and you get disabled. What you're worried about that would make you buy this policy is you got bills at work. You got to pay rent, utilities, maybe you've got leasing agreements on some equipment. You got to pay all your employees. And you're not going in to fix teeth, so there's very little income coming in. You're going to lose your business because you can't afford to keep it open. But if you buy business overhead, that policy pays those expenses at work. It doesn't pay you an income. As a dentist, if you want disability income, put it in group or individual by your income. What it does pay is exactly what it says, the business overhead. Okay? That's what it covers. And what's interesting about this is it's different than the first two. On this one, you do deduct what you paid in premium as a business expense, meaning when you get disabled, that check is going to be declared income to the business and you have to pay taxes on it. Different than the first two. Okay, now let's get to what we're talking about. This is the sheet, okay? This is another sheet I would really encourage you, not this one, the next slide, because this shows 5 disability income policies that can be taxed. There's only 5, okay? There's individual and group, but then there's 3 business ones, right? Key person, buy, sell, and business overhead. What I notice on this is only 2 tax your check. So knowing that, we went and created this slide, which is the one I want you to take a picture of. Instead of torturing yourself trying to learn 5 plans taxes for what might be 2 questions on the test, just learn 2. I know that if it's employer paid group, I have to pay tax on my check. I know if it's business overhead, I have to pay tax on my check. So understanding what I've told you about taxes, you can get all your tax questions correct by learning the 2 that you pay tax on the check. What are you talking about, Peter? So they say, key person, do you pay tax on the check? Well, it's not one of the two. The answer is no. But what if they say, key person, do you pay tax on the premium? Well, just think about it. If the check is tax free, I must have paid tax on the premium. So I don't know if that made sense to you. Take this slide, learn the two. No matter which of the 5 policies they ask about taxability, if you learn the two that tax the check, you should be able to figure out the rest. Okay. But all your tax questions on disability that people complain to me about all the time, I can't get taxes right. First of all, there's not a lot of them, maybe 2, okay, or 3. If you learn the two, you pay tax on the check, and you understand the IRS is going to tax one side or the other, you should get both of them right. Now, let me go back. I can see your comments. That teaching, it's not like worth 10 points on your test, but what it's worth is it helps you get the tax questions correct and takes the stress off of your studying. I'm worried about the taxes. I'm worried about the taxes. Stop worrying about the taxes. Just learn the two, okay? And you'll be fine. All right, I'm moving on. We got to learn some things about Social Security disability insurance, okay? Now, with Social Security disability, my friends, there are some numbers that can show up on your test. So I tried to highlight them. Number one, you must prove to Social Security that you're going to be disabled for a minimum of 12 months. That's why we said it's only long-term disability. If you don't prove to them you're going to be disabled for 12 months or die, and yet that's an option too, they won't even consider you for disability income. So the first number you got to know, you got to be disabled for 12 months. You got to be fully insured, which requires you to have 40 credits. What's a credit? Social Security gives you 1 credit for every 3 months you work and have Social Security tax paid, okay? So there are 4 credits in a year. If you've worked and paid Social Security tax for 10 years, that will equal the 40 credits, and you're fully insured for Social Security disability income. You're currently insured if you've paid taxes for a year and a half out of the last 3 years. They may give you a question on credits. The numbers are 40 or 6. And if you meet either, you will be able to get Social Security disability income. And how long do you receive Social Security disability income? Like all disability income, you will receive, that's not the question. Do I have a waiting period? You do. Is a 5-month waiting period before the check kicks in. Peter, you just told me 12 months. You're making no sense. You have to listen to what I said. First, you must prove to Social Security that you will be out for 12 months. That's just get you in the door. But once you are approved, they will start your checks week 6 of your disability. You have a 5-month waiting period once you're approved. Both are numbers that can show up on the test, okay? Starting in week 6, you get a check. How much do I get? They take an average of your income for 35 years if you've worked that long. They let you take out the 5 lowest. They give you an average income every year that you paid Social Security tax on. That will equate to something called your primary insurance amount. Big deal. Folks, what it means is the people who pay the most Social Security tax get the highest check. The people who pay the lowest Social Security tax gets the lower check. That's all it is. You need to know primary insurance amount, okay? And it's connected to 30 years of income. 5 35 minus your 5 lowest. Now, how long does it last? This is the same as any disability income policy I've told you. It lasts until you're age 65 or you return to work. Stops at 65 because at 65 you now are entitled to Social Security retirement. Okay? Return to work or till age 65. If you go back to work, Social Security does send $500 for 3 months after you return to work to kind of help with adjustments. So there's some numbers and some phrases in there that could show up on your test, but let's be frank, there's not a ton of Social Security questions. All right. Now, just as a bonus, going to take me 5 or 6 minutes. What I'm going to do when you study another chapter on seniors products, one of the policies that they will make a big deal of because it's a very important policy is called a long-term care policy. The only reason I stuck it in today is I want you to know long-term care and disability income are in basically the same policy. What are you talking about? Give me a chance, okay? The purpose of long-term care. What's the benefit length? Something called activities of daily living, elimination period, levels of care, insurance protection, inflation protection is what I'm going to cover in about 5 minutes. Okay. Number one, what is long-term care? Long-term care does not cover medical bills. Okay. If you're a senior and you have medical bills, your Medicare is going to cover it. But it covers those bills that are not medical that a lot of people who are getting older need. They may need someone to come and clean the house, may need somebody to come and do the laundry or things like that, or to, prepare food for them. Medicare is not going to cover that. That's not medical. But long term care does. It's needing help in your daily living. You need help with eating, bathing, going to the bathroom, getting dressed. Okay. Now, the family can do that for only so long before they get exhausted. And some families can't because they don't live near their relative. They need to hire a firm to come and do this. Who's paying for this? Long term care policy. How long does it provide coverage? Well, long term care benefit, this is my point. Exactly like disability income, you buy a benefit period for how long the checks will last. Most states require that it be a minimum of 12 months. I would think you'd never not want it for less. But the longer the benefit period, what does that do to your price? It increases it. So I think if we have benefits for 3 years, that should be enough for grandma. It's your call. Okay. But it's just like the benefit period in disability income. It's the same thing, works the same way. And then you take an elimination period, just like disability income. How long before you want the benefits to start? In long term care, you cannot take an elimination period shorter than 30 days. Okay, it has to be at least for 30 days. You pay the first month. And then after that, the benefits kick in. I don't know if you're following me or not. Being that this is a live class, I don't even know how many of you have stuck around. But if you care to know, the elimination period on long-term care policy is only for residential living. If you go in assisted living or nursing home, okay, then you have to satisfy the elimination period. But if it's just to have someone come in and prepare meals and do a laundry, no elimination period. They start paying right away. I don't know if that's on the test, but I have a lot of older clients and we talk a lot about these policies. I have clients who've used them and hi, Phyllis. So just trying to see if that makes sense. What triggers a long-term care payout? I have told you it is basically a disability income policy. You got to choose how much insurance you're buying, just like you do in disability income, an elimination period and a benefit period. But on disability income, you get a check if you satisfy any occupation or own occupation. Oh, cupcake. I'm so sorry to hear that. We'll talk in a second. With long-term care, okay, you have the inability to do at least two, some insurance companies require three, but most are two, of these activities of daily living. Dressing yourself, being able to eat, pick up a fork, spoon, and eat, bathing yourself, the mobility, you can't walk, you need help getting around, or continence, you cannot control yourself. Um, if you can't do two of those, and a doctor says that, you get a check. Okay. Disability income, if you can work someplace else, own occupation, any occupation, you satisfy that, you get a check. But the policy itself works the same. Elimination period, benefit period. Tricky test question. Sleeping, driving, and talking are not ADLs. You should learn the 5 ADLs because they'll try to trick you. Say Charlie can't drive a car. Is that an ADL? No, that's not one of the activities of daily living. Now, what coverages are on a long-term care policy? And here's the criteria, my friends. If it's medical, it is not covered. Okay, skilled nursing, notice constant nurse at a facility, that's medical because there's a nurse involved, not covered. Okay, intermediate care, occasional medical professional. If it's a medical professional covered by medical policies, not long-term care. Home health care that requires medical professionals to come to your home is not covered by long-term care. Why? Your medical policies will cover them. All right. However, these are not covered by your medical policies. Somebody comes in to help you with activities of daily living. We have a little picture of somebody coming in to feed you. Okay. Respite care. The family is exhausted from taking care and they hire you to come in 2 or 3 days a week to do what they've been doing, which is give them a bath in the morning, get them dressed, make sure they get a good meal. Sometimes it's as simple as just playing cards with them and spending some social time, maybe doing some laundry to help out. Nothing medical, but you're filling in for the family. Respite care is covered by your long-term care. Adult daycare is just exactly what you imagine it to be. You take our patient who's covered to daily on a long. What am I trying to say? A daycare for people who have trouble with activities of daily living. My mother had dementia, and 3 days a week, my dad sent her to this daycare facility. They picked her up, brought her down there. She did arts and crafts. People came in, sang songs, gave her a snack, and then they drove her home. She had 3 or 4 hours where my father could rest, and she got to do some things. And long-term care will pick that up because it's not medical, right? Now, there are some things that will not be covered on your long-term care. They don't cover pre-existing conditions. They don't cover mental and nervous disorders such as schizophrenia. They don't cover alcoholism or drug abuse. If you have injuries caused by war, that will be covered by the veterans. If you've been involved in criminal activity or anything covered by Medicare and workers' comp, they're not going to cover. Now, if you get a long-term care policy, please remember this. These items have to be covered. Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's are required to be covered on all long-term care policies. So between you and me, what happens is when you apply for it, if you show any signs of dementia, and a lot of times they give cognitive recognition tests, they'll decline you because they know if they accept you, they've got to cover it, and no insurance company likes to pick up a guaranteed claim. Okay. But once you get a long-term care policy, should any of these three surface, it must be covered. That's the point. Will I have enough coverage when my time comes? Well, we can never guarantee that. What I basically do, let me go back a slide. This won't be on your test anyways, is I just tell Mrs. Jones, you bought $5,000 a month with a 30-day wait, and it's for 2 years. $5,000 a month is 60 grand. We'll take a month off, 55,000 plus 60, $115,000. Go, you bought 2 years. I don't know if that'll cover all your bills, but you have $115,000 more than you did yesterday when you bought the policy. Now, I don't know if you followed me. You take the number of dollars per month and how many years are they going to get benefits? I subtract out that she didn't get 1 month, and I came up with a number pretty simply. And that's money she didn't have before she bought the policy. Inflation guard is important because you buy a policy when you're 65 and healthy, and you need a nursing home when you're 85. 20 years later, what was a lot of money when you bought the policy suddenly isn't. The best way we take care of it is number two. Insurance companies offer COLA, cost of living adjustment, where they will just automatically increase your benefits by the inflation rate every single year. You pay extra for this, so it doesn't increase your price every year. It just increases your benefits. Right now, in almost every state, insurance companies, if they offer a policy, are required to show the policy with COLA. And then there's a box. I choose not to buy this. And if people don't want to pay for it, they check that box. This is because later on, when they're 85 and they say this isn't enough money, I wanted to buy the COLA. And nobody told me, yes, we did, because you checked the box saying you didn't want it. COLA is offered with every proposal. You also can get one that's guaranteed insurability, which means in the future, the insurance company will offer you more insurance. They can't decline you. You can buy it with no health questions. You just have to pay extra money each time. You can buy a policy with return of premium. It's pretty expensive, but what happens here is somebody doesn't want the policy anymore. Perhaps they die. They can get their money back. Okay, that you got to pay extra for that. Non-forfeiture, if you're studying life insurance, what this is that you don't want the policy anymore. Well, no, let's say it this way. You can't afford the policy anymore and you don't want to lose the protection. The insurance company will give you a paid up policy for a smaller amount. You bought $5,000 a month, you had it for 15 years. You don't want to pay anymore. We'll just change the policy to $3,500 a month and you don't have to make any more payments. So that's called the non-forfeiture option. All right, I'm done. This is how you reach me. Apologize for the technical difficulties, but I don't have anything to do with that. I know I talked a long time for these live classes. I try to keep it a little shorter, but I had an ambitious goal of trying to connect long-term care and disability to help you out. I want to thank you all for attending. I would like to have a word with Cupcake here, but anybody got any questions before we take off? You are more than welcome. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to just chat with Cupcake for a second. Cupcake, I know we don't want to go through why you didn't pass or whatever, so I'm going to put on the chat box my email address, okay? Now, if you want, you're not required, obviously, please write to me and tell me what test you took, how you scored, what weak areas you have. Oh, it's your last time? Hmm. What state? Were you close? Like you missed by a point or two, or were you way off? I'm sorry to hear that. How long do you have to wait before you can take it again? Can you take it again in a year or something? A year. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Um, that's that's not good news for sure. You have any suggestions to us? That maybe we could have done differently or something? Well, I'm really, really sorry that happened. Um, if you want to do it in a year and you come back, um, I would suggest maybe taking some mentoring along with your study. We got several sources of mentoring. We have a lady that teaches how to pass the exam. Um, I do one-on-one. There's uh, it was this Life and Health? Yeah. So we offer other ways that can do it. Yeah, and annuities too, to kind of help you walk through this. I teach some classes on handling difficult test questions, but if you're still motivated to do it in a year, please come back and see us and let us start off from the beginning, getting you some personal attention. Okay. For the rest of you, thanks for coming. It's a pleasure being with you. Um, and I wish you all stay in good health. Please study every day. Okay. Don't skip days. Keep your minds fresh on the topic. Even if you don't have much time, at least study something every day. So have a great day, folks. I'm teaching live a couple more times this week if you think I can help you. Thanks for coming.